And hello everyone, I'm Breor. Welcome back to Goodgame Empire. Today's video is going to be on the topic of attacking and defeating dragons in the Fire Peaks. Now this is a video that I've released previously here on the channel, but since making it, I have discovered a second method that is more powerful and potent for higher level players. Now I should mention right off the bat that dragons are difficult targets to defeat, and if you don't have a commander that has a high ranged combat strength bonus, in addition to a high courtyard combat strength bonus, you probably shouldn't attempt to attack them. But if you do have that commander, dragons are excellent targets because they yield plenty of resources for players and also some rubies and coins as well. In fact, if you keep up on attacking dragons and desert fortresses, you can earn thousands of rubies every day. So that is why you might be interested. Let's go ahead and take a look now at the first of two methods by going to the world map and going to a nearby dragon. Now you want to be attacking the dragons that are located closest to your castle first, because these will be the quickest to get to and the cheapest to get to. These things matter because you don't want to be spending a lot of rubies to earn a couple rubies, and if you get there too slow, you could be easily beaten to the target. Now other players can attack the dragons as well, and when the dragons have been defeated, they go on a 17-hour cooldown. This one here was beaten by me last night, and has approximately 2 more hours to go before I can attack it again. Let's go back up to this open dragon here, and when dragons are open, you should spy them. You'll be able to click on them, and you'll be able to attack them as well. You actually don't need to spy dragons if you are going to use the first method, as it will definitely be the same every time, and you won't even have to use ladders. Let me go now to the commander that I'll be using for this attack. I will use the same commander in both methods, so you guys have an accurate comparison. This is the Stormblade commander. Let me go ahead and open up the equipment window. I have made a video about him in the past. Check the description for a link to that. This one is pretty easy to get, but it's very potent and powerful, a 90/90 with some other interesting benefits as well. So let's go ahead and set up for the first method of attack. You need to come to the first wave here and drop in 38 wooden mantlets. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we are up to 38. In addition, you need to drop in 2 of these cast iron mantlets. They are the cheaper ruby mantlets. You could just use 1 shield wall, but it's actually cheaper to buy 2 of these than it is to buy 1 of those. So these combined will bring the strength of the ranged defenders all the way down to 0. As you can see, there are only ranged defenders here in the wall. That will mean that our battle will progress to the courtyard, where we will meet melee defenders, which is pretty good because we will be sending some ranged attackers, and melee defenders are weak against ranged attackers. So let's fill in all 4 waves with these ranged attackers. This is really all it takes, guys. But as I was saying earlier, you do need a good commander to use this method. If you can see on this commander, I have a 58 plus 25% courtyard bonus. I'm not sure if the plus 25% would only apply to enemy castle lords. Yes, unfortunately it does, but 58 seems high enough for me, so that's what I'll be using. The reason for the importance of a courtyard bonus is because once again we will be fighting the defenders that are on these flanks once they move back to the courtyard. So let's go ahead and launch this attack. Now here is a choice that some players will face. If you are high enough in level to have wings and actually be in Fire Peaks, you may decide to use wings and save rubies. Now the question becomes, is 1 wing cheaper than 53 rubies? And that is dependent upon what alliance you are in. If you are in an alliance that can earn a lot of fast travel feathers or wings from events, then perhaps it would be. And I think that is the case for Kingdom of Nef 2, so I'll go ahead and use a wing rather than 53 rubies. Alright guys, so the attack has landed. Let's go ahead and take a look at our results. Normally I get between 40 and 50 losses on attacks like this. I don't know what would cause the variance, but let's go ahead and see how well we did on this one. So 45 losses is right in the middle of the pack, and as I was saying before, these guys give out plenty of rubies, 370 rubies to be precise. let's go ahead and open up the details. I recommend you look at the details on all of your unique reports just so that you can educate yourself on how to do better in the future. But this method is pretty tried and true. We didn't take any casualties on the wall because our mantlets once again reduced the strength of the ranged defenders all the way down to 0. I've tried it before just using one of the ruby mantlets and not quite getting it to 0, but that was a disaster. I took about double the losses, approximately 40 losses on the wall, so I definitely recommend that you reduce that bonus all the way to 0 so that you can't take any casualties there. So looking now in the courtyard, we did take 45 casualties, and I presume that it's because these dragon claws are very, very powerful. Even against ranged soldiers, they have a combat strength of 180. So that wraps it up for this method of attack. I'm going to look around now, see if there is another dragon that is open nearby that I can also do an attack on using the other method. Alright guys, we have a dragon up here that is also open. Hopefully I can make it to him first as well. Now I do have to wait for my troops to return and for my spy to land, because for this attack I will be needing to use a specific number of mantlets. Now as I said, I'm going to use the same commander so you guys get representative results and a good comparison between the two methods of attack. But if you have a commander that is not particularly strong in terms of courtyard combat strength, you will want to use this method because you will be taking more casualties in the courtyard if you can only capture the front. This method is going to capture one of the flanks and the front, so that will mean that we are even or on even ground in the courtyard. So let's go ahead and take a look at the spy report now. As I was just showing you guys, the troops that are stationed at a dragon are quite strong indeed. Here are 50 dragon claws, but once again they are strong against ranged and melee. You do want to send ranged because there is a difference there, and they will crush melee attackers. So for this method of attack, we are actually going to be using sacrifices. The tools on a dragon are stacked 3 waves deep, so we'll be using 3 waves of sacrifices here in the center, and then we will be bringing the dragon fire ranged combat strength all the way down to 0 again. So let's take a note of the combat bonus offered by the dragon's flaming arrows. This will be 75% because 3 times 25% is going to be 75%. We can also make a note of the castle gate reinforcements, but that actually won't be necessary, as once again we will be using mantlets to reduce the combat strength of the ranged defenders to 0, just on a smaller scale. Let's go ahead and hit the attack button now that my troops have returned. I had to stall for a bit talking in order for them to make it back in time, but once again let's change to our second commander. Here's another look, and let's fill in with 3 waves of sacrifices. Now I like using melee soldiers as sacrifices because these dragon attacks can be very detrimental to the health of your ranged armies. Let's go ahead and fill in now with a full ranged wave on wave number 4, and we know that 206 minus 75 is going to be 131. So let's use enough mantlets to bring a combat strength of 131 all the way down to 0. 27 is going to be the magic number, and that will be true for everybody, no matter what your commander here looks like. But what won't be true for everybody is how many ladders you will need to use, and that is why you need to spy when you are using this method of attack. Now using the buccaneer, I would need to use 12, and I will need to use 12 ladders to bring that castle wall protection down to 0. But if I change commanders, for example, I would only need to use 4. But this commander here does not have the same courtyard combat strength, so I'm going to stick with my second commander and just use more ladders. They are pretty cheap and easy to produce. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in with ladders here, another ranged wave, at least on that flank. I'm actually going to do the same thing here on the second flank, though I don't anticipate that the attack will break through to the second flank. There's certainly no chance of it breaking through to the third and fourth flank unless your commander is weaker than mine is. So if this is the first time you're making this attack, I would fill in with ladders on all 4 waves, and then you can just gauge how deep the defense penetrates once you see a battle report. Because unused tools just come back home, there's no real disadvantage doing that. So one last look at our attack. Here on the first wave, we are attacking on the left flank with ranged and ladders. We don't need to use any mantlets because all of these defenders are melee. It's going to be the same deal here on the second wave and on the third wave. Make sure you have your sacrifices in place because it will not be well if you don't. And then finally here on the fourth wave, we are attacking with mantlets and ranged combat troops. Gonna launch the attack now. I'm not gonna do a, well actually I'm gonna do a time lapse. I'm gonna end up with a really big recording file, but that's okay. Gonna choose glass this time. I'm gonna spend a wing once more, and let's go ahead and launch this attack. Alright everyone, our second attack has landed, and it's time to take a look at the results. Now normally I accrue more casualties on these attacks, making this method the worst method of the two, but let's see how it went for this report. So I took 65 casualties, and once again I'm going to go ahead and open up the details. Just a quick note that we earned the same amount of rubies as last time, so there's no real difference there. The only difference is in the casualties. Now, as you can see, I took the bulk of casualties this time on the flank. It looks like I only had to face the flank in the first wave though, but it was quite close, which is why I put the ladders on the second flank as well. Once again, our sacrifices worked, or I suppose for the first time, at least during this video, and we faced their defenders here in the center in the fourth wave. Now once again we reduced the combat strength of the ranged defenders down to 0, so we didn't lose any attackers there. We only lost attackers in the courtyard and on the flank. So that concludes this video about attacking the dragons. Once again, the reason for doing so is generally to loot rubies, and higher level players will definitely be interested in dominating the dragons in their area. I would recommend that you try out the first method before you try out the second, because if you can make it work, then that will definitely be to your benefit. Most players will have a commander that is high enough in ranged combat strength and in courtyard strength to make that first method viable. Alright guys, thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss any future videos. You can also follow me on Twitter if you would like updates about the game and about the videos I am making. Thanks once again for watching, and have a good day.